board reports aren't usually the place you expect to get emotional. But when Belvoir Street Theatre board met in October, there was one paragraph that stopped us all. Our artistic director had written, "As Shakti and I sit down for the first preview of our play at the Public Theatre, we looked at each other and voiced the same worry. Would New York audiences get the playfulness of an Australian play about the Sri Lankan Civil War?" The play is Counting and Cracking. It has 16 performers, 3 musicians from 6 different countries, speaking 5 different languages, and it's the story of a Sri Lankan and Australian family covering 4 generations. In Australia, it's known very well for its artistic merit, but today I'm going to speak about its community. Its Belvoir life started over a decade ago, and it isn't an accident that it ended up in New York with the Public Theatre after seasons in Sydney, Adelaide, Melbourne, Birmingham, and Edinburgh. But it did take a leap of faith and a lot of work. My name is Fiona Hulton. I'm up there somewhere with my beautiful colleagues. I'm Belvoir Street Theatre's Deputy Executive Director, Marketing, People, Community. And yes, I do joke that my title is a paragraph. But it is a key to the story that I'm telling today. One about community storytelling, which of course in this country began with our First Nations people, who we acknowledge as our first storytellers. Today, we are on Gadigal, and we pay our respects to the people of the Eora Nation, past and present. Belvoir Street Theatre is turning 40 next year. Our original charter was create contemporary, politically sharp, hard-edged Australian theatre, develop new forms of theatrical expression, create work by and about Aboriginal Australians, contemporary music theatre, work created by women, radical interpretations of the classics, and work that was surprising, diverse, and passionate. And while we're a bit sharper and snappier talking about what we do these days, the intention of that 40-year charter still guides us. My title, and the inclusion of community in it, is a step that Belvoir took in 2023 to make our community work visible. We wanted the community to be represented in the most important rooms in our buildings, at board meetings, at staff meetings, with budget lines, with action plans. It's as important as artistic, ticketing, and finance. But when it comes to community, it's no one team's job. It's everyone's. The journey of Counting and Cracking isn't actually that surprising if you understand the DNA of Belvoir. We are the home of Page 8, of the Sapphires, and of Radiance. We're proud that in 1988, the year of the bicentenary, we commemorated the colonisation of Australia by presenting 5 First Nations works, a season of black theatre. So programming work from often unheard voices is what our value system is based on. But even with good values, it's not straightforward. We know that Australia is a nation of migrants and refugees. What we also know is that Australian theatre is often stories about white society, and Australian theatre goers are often well-educated, middle-class white people. It's all very well programming diverse work, but there have always been more questions than answers. Why haven't the audiences changed? Do artists feel safe? How do you change old models of financing, marketing, creative practices? How do you heal, not harm, the artists and the audiences in the room? Why are we programming this work, and to what end? Counting and Cracking wasn't the beginning of Belvoir's diverse programming journey, but it was a huge leap forward in terms of embedding community into our process. In 2013, our artistic director, Eamon Flack, attended a reading of a new play about Sri Lanka and Australia by a writer called S. Shaktidaran, otherwise known as Shakti. Shakti had already been writing Counting and Cracking for many years at that point, and the involvement of him and his company, Co-Curious, was a key element of our success, because this is his community. He wanted to tell a meaningful story, one that doesn't sensationalise or trivialise what happened in Sri Lanka during the 25-year civil war. And he wanted his community to see it. Together, Eamon and Shakti made a promise to each other that they would not compromise on scale and ambition. So they made a huge, sweeping production. It's about migration, refugees, reconciliation, and of course, love. Which sounds wonderful, and the work truly is an act of generosity. It is playful, handmade, inventive, communal. But a work of that scale is also expensive. Belvoir committed to years of research and development upfront. No outcomes expected. There were many new drafts and readings, South Asian actors coming in, being paid to participate and collaborate. There was a research trip for Shakti, Eamon, and our set designer to Sri Lanka to best understand the culture and aesthetic. And we did international casting in Europe, India, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Malaysia, anywhere we could find English, Tamil, Sinhalese speakers. The resourcing committed to many years of development was an extraordinary act of faith from the Belvoir board. The risk was high. So when the production finally did make it into the season brochure, the stakes were higher, not just financially, but with community KPIs and artistic integrity. Cultural safety came first, and it was a big part of this process, especially in the rehearsal room. Shakti challenged Belvoir to scrutinise its practices to ensure inclusive internal process, which comes down to two principles. Community is at the heart of the process. Inclusion is a matter of safety. What they found in the rehearsal room was that working from a place of community ultimately empowers artists, particularly artists of marginalised lived experience, to take bolder risks with their work and to ask bigger, more socially seismic questions. With our audience development strategy, we wanted to develop relationships with each community that is bespoke, meaningful, and long-term, extending well beyond the life of that show. We have a before, during, and after strategy, and the intention is to have conscious points of contact during each of those moments. So with Counting and Cracking, Belvoir's championing a work to a non-traditional Western theatre audience about an event that still holds a lot of hurt and pain for those citizens. It would not be appropriate for me to turn up to a Tamil family and tell them why they should come and see a Sri Lankan play at our theatre. So we financially and creatively invested in Tamil and Sinhalese community to become our community liaisons. The marketing team learned how to run campaigns from WhatsApp because that's where the Sri Lankan audience is, not on time out looking at digital ads. Key promotions were translated to Tamil and Sinhala. We released tickets to the community before we released them to the general public. We gave them straightforward links to ticketing information, and we left that very old-fashioned but really needed physical collateral with community and religious leaders. We went out early and we went out often. During a community campaign, the thing that has often kept myself and current and former colleagues who have done this work going is that we believe in the power of storytelling. We have to, because this audience development work can be confronting. It's about being willing to not just sit in, but lean into discomfort, to learn to be told that you're not doing it right, to listen, to check your fragility at the door. There is no version of obvious marketing with a new community. It is constant focus groups, consultation, and feedback. Recently, we presented a work about a Bharatanatyam dancer who has experienced gendered violence. After community feedback about how sexual assault is not something that that community talks about a lot, in the process, what we discovered was that some of our key champions were South Asian health professionals specialising in women's health, talking to their female patients. But the truth of that is, it can be slow going. I can't stand here and pretend Belvoir has the magic bullet to building a new community, but what we have learnt is that if we let the community lead the conversation, they will come. And we need to keep investing, because you have to service both audience campaigns. You can't forego one for the other. That subscriber, season ticket holder also has to come. They have to be convinced to come and see a 3-hour play about the Sri Lankan Civil War. It is important that they are sitting in that theatre side by side. Once the marketing is done and the community have hopefully bought a ticket, we focus on the experience. We've just told an entire Sri Lankan community to come to see theatre at a place they don't necessarily know and probably don't feel welcome. The space needs to make them feel like they've been consciously considered. With Counting and Cracking, we did that with very, very yummy curry. We continue to do that work with different things: smells, sounds, food, photos, tactile objects. We also invest in community attending dress rehearsals and previews. We recently paid a neurodivergent panel to come and see a dress rehearsal of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Their experience of using the resources, the freely available fidgets, just being ushered in and out of that theatre literally changed how we managed our front of house. And finally, the post-show commitment. They came, they saw, we hope they enjoyed. But it's on Belvoir now to commit and to prove to that community that this is a relationship, not just a one-night stand. Since Counting and Cracking, we've continued our commitment to South Asian audiences and audiences invested in that work. We have programmed Jungle in the Sea, Nayaka, a Dancing Girl, and next year we have The Wrong Gods, also by Shakti. We have a pipeline of work planned, and we've given the South Asian audience a reason to come back. We've also amplified this strategy to invest in other communities that don't always make it to the theatre. We introduced MobTix, which is an initiative for First Nations patrons to access free tickets to literally any performance they want to. We kept the fidget toys and the earplugs free and available at the bar for our neurodivergent audience. This year, we introduced the Queer Night subscription, which is a step up in the initiative of queer nights that we've had for a little while. And next year, we're presenting community nights for First Nations and South Asian work, community-only performances for a culturally safe experience. Since Counting and Cracking, we've also released a 3-year equity and justice plan. We're actually soon to release our second version, and it has very ambitious programming, staffing, and audience targets, but crucially, not financial ones. It's a tricky balancing act. Culturally specific work on main stages are still scarce, so those shows have the pressure of feeling they cannot artistically fail. It's our responsibility to invest in scaffolding and resourcing around artists and processes so that the pressure doesn't artistically cripple them. And it's dangerous to measure success by the income derived from these particular productions. Income helps, but it's too soon in our journey of community development. This is a long game. Back to New York. How did it go? There have been many measures of success over the 3 tours. Counting and Cracking showed that new stories of ambition and scale can be told by Australians to Australians and to international audiences. The production received extraordinary community feedback and attendance. Both Sydney seasons in 2019 and 2024 sold out. The production won 18 awards in its first season. There were many 5-star reviews, including the New York Times naming it its critics' pick. The immense generosity of philanthropists and government was in itself a generous act of community. And Belvoir broke even financially. That's success. But I only mention it, the only reason it's important, and I mention it only because it means we could actually put our money where our mouth is. We took the original producer royalty, we've tipped it back in the kitty. It is now seeding our next large-scale, ambitious, diverse work. The success of Counting and Cracking and all of the community work we do needs all sides of the company working well. The artistry of the program, but also marketing, front of house, ticketing, philanthropy. And of course, the cooperation and advocacy of artists like Shakti, who want to see us succeed in community development. Delivering work for community means deep listening, engagement, and discomfort. It's being open to the needs, concerns, and priorities of a wide range of people, and it's worth it. These communities will become the bedrock of Belvoir's future, one that is diverse, politically sharp, and able to withstand an unpredictable future, just like our 40-year-old charter asked us to. As is only right, I leave the final words to community.
That was spine-tingling.
I've been in Sri Lanka during that war period, so I felt the emotion so deeply.
It's incredibly moving, incredibly profound. It was also very poignant for all of us that come as migrants.
It was absolutely amazing. It makes me want to go back to Sri Lanka. Makes me feel more educated about my own history.
They have condensed the situations and the incidents of about 30 years into just 3 hours in a very, very powerful and effective way.